After leaving Badlands National Park, we planned our trip east to include the Laura Ingalls Wilder Historic Highway. So we started off east on Interstate 90 for a short distance until we reached Highway 72 north towards the town of Philip, South Dakota. Once we arrived in Phillips, we started again to travel east along Highway 14, which in 1995 was designated the Laura Ingalls Wilder Historic Highway. Most of us are familiar with the TV series Little House on the Prairie that ran from 1974 through 1983. The series featured the Ingalls family living in the small town of Walnut Grove. In my early teens, I watched the show daily after school and loved watching the adventures of young Laura Ingalls. Years later, I rewatched episodes with my own two daughters, and they enjoyed them as much as I did, particularly my youngest daughter, Angela, who we teased how she was born in the wrong era as she was obsessed with all things pioneer. Takes up the whole road.
That's a lot of tractor.
That is a lot of tractor. Excited about a sandwich. Not much room there, but make it work. Our first stop on Highway 14 was the Plum Creek Waterhole Historical Marker. The inscription says, "Plum Creek Waterhole was best in territory over 100 years ago. At that time, there was a telegraph station, a road ranch, and the Deadwood stage changed horses here. 3 famous old trails crossed here: Deadwood Trail, Fort Bennett Army Trail to Nebraska, and Cherry Creek Indian Trail to Rosebud. The marker was erected in 1951. This was a nice roadside stop. We walked around for a little bit to stretch our legs and have a lunch snack. Then it was back on the road and more prairies to be seen. Now you might not remember, but in our first video when we started this trip, we had a problem with one of our rear tires losing air. A week or so before we left on this trip, I had our tires rotated at our local Les Schwab Tire Center. The service tech apparently had bent a valve stem, creating a slow leak. We stopped at a Les Schwab dealer about an hour from our home in Klamath Falls, Oregon, and they tried to fix the stem. However, we still had to add air every 2 days. I found a truck tire center in Fort Pierre, South Dakota. They said they could fix this for us, so I had an appointment scheduled for the next day. I'd also found a city park near the fairgrounds and hoped that we would be able to stay there.
the light, turn right onto Deadwood Street.
Okay, we will turn right onto Deadwood Street. Ow! Are you ready to turn right onto Deadwood Street? There's just... These signs got a little confusing for me as the navigator. The construction and signage was very complex, not to mention Fort Pierre and Pierre are two different towns with two different time zones separated by the Missouri River.
Whoa, ice cream.
Oh, there's a dairy flow.
It's a cool spot.
Oh, we might have to come back to that cool spot.
Park campground.
Welcome to Fort Pierre's. Camping fees $15 a night. Unfortunately, the RV park was full. We did not realize that South Dakota State High School rodeo event was happening at the same weekend. We were able to come back the next morning and for a small fee use their dump facility.
Missouri River?
It's the Missouri River. I did see that. So, plan B, the local Walmart. We were in need of stocking up on groceries and other items, so it seemed a fair trade. Our business for one night's sleep. Also, I had checked with the store and was told overnighting was just fine. So, Walmart it is. The next morning, after a quick dump at the county park, it was off to our tire appointment. These folks at WW Tire treated us great. Not only did they fix our leaking valve stem, they checked the others and found that a second one had been bent as well and replaced it. We have had no further issues. And once again, we cross the Missouri River and we continue along the Laura Ingalls Highway. It wasn't too far down the road that we stopped at a construction light. Not thinking much about it, we waited for the light to change. But when it did, well, let's just say we were not going to go until we were sure that it was all clear. It was during this time in our trip that I really started feeling poorly. I had noticed the morning that we left the Rocky Mountains National Park that my right shoulder was achy and itchy, but it wasn't too bad, and I just shook it off. Well, now we were about 9 days into it, and the itching and aching had really increased. Apparently, I had been bitten by something. There was a line of about 5 raised bumps across my shoulder blade and 2 bites on my upper arm. At first I thought it was a mosquito bite, but I had no clue how it had been biting through my clothing, and I still had never had this much of a reaction to mosquito bites in the past. In the town of Miller, we found Crystal Park, a city park that provided electric, fresh water, and a dump facility for free. Of course, donations are accepted, and we gladly showed our appreciation. Wads was left on his own and took Skippy for his evening walk. I think he even made himself dinner, although it was a bit comical watching him try to figure out where I have things hidden away. I often call this van Tetris. Another day on the road begins, and we continue traveling east on Highway 14. Again, it seems like the prairies go on and on forever, as wildfires in Canada were causing some smoky skies. But honestly, this smoke is very mild in comparison to what we get in southern Oregon. We took a lunch break in the town of Huron, the 8th most populated city in South Dakota. Huron was founded during the railroad and land booms in the 1880s, and it has that real hometown vibe. Oh, and don't miss the giant pheasant. As we continued our drive through the prairies, I did a bit of research on Laura Ingalls Wilder in her early years. Young Laura was actually born in 1867 while the family lived in Pippin, Wisconsin. While the original cabin was lost, there is a replica that still stands. The Homestead Act of 1862 lured the family to Independence, Kansas. Settlers were promised 160 acres for just $18. In 1869, the Ingalls family built a cabin 12 miles southwest of Independence on land that still belonged to the Osage Indian Reservation. It was not open to settlers, but many built their homes there anyways. When rumors came of soldiers running illegal homesteaders off the land, Charles, Laura's father, decided to leave Kansas behind. Since the new owners of the land back in Pippin had defaulted on their mortgage, it was back to Wisconsin, at least for the next few years. After repeated hardships with their wheat crop, the family made the move to Walnut Grove, Minnesota, in 1874. This is where the fictional television series introduces us to the family. However, don't look for any landmarks, as the show was filmed in California. The family's first home in Minnesota was a dugout built right on the banks of Plum Creek. The walls, the floor, and the roof were all dirt. The house has been lost, and all that remains of the dugout is a deep depression along the creek about 1.5 miles south of the now Walnut Grove Laura Ingalls Wilder Museum in the town of Walnut Grove. In 1876, the family bid a temporary goodbye to Plum Creek and Walnut Grove. The family moved to Burr Oak, Iowa, so that Charles could help family friends manage the Masters Hotel. Burr Oak is considered the lost year, in which there is no account of this time in her book series. Apparently, the hotel business went south, and by 1878, the family moved back to Walnut Grove for a second time. The family did not stay long in Walnut Grove, and when Charles was offered a job with the railroad in the Dakota Territory, it was time to move west. His wife Caroline agreed so long as it was their last move. As we traveled east on Highway 14, the first town that the Ingalls family had lived in that we came to was Smet. So in 1879, Charles took the job as a timekeeper for the railroad in the newly formed town of Smet. The best I could put together is that Charles and Caroline Ingalls lived in 3 different locations while in Smet. The first being the surveyor's house when he worked for the railroad, the Ingalls homestead outside of town, and in their later years, the house that Pa built in town. In Smet, Laura met and married Almanzo Wilder, but after many tragedies, including the death of their son and a ruined crop and a house fire, the couple moved in with Almanzo's family in Spring Valley, Minnesota, from 1890 to 1891. While in Spring Valley, Laura and Almanzo considered their next move. In 1891, they took a trip to Florida, thinking that the change in climate would do them good. However, they quickly decided the move was a mistake and moved back to the Midwest, first to Smet, then south to Mansfield. Here they purchased Rocky Ridge Farm in 1894 and settled down for good. It was years later at the Rocky Ridge farmhouse that Laura began to compose her memoirs. Today, visitors can tour the home and see the very writing desk where Laura worked. A few minutes' drive from the historic farm are the graves of Almanzo, Laura, and daughter Rose. Laura didn't publish her first book until she was 65 years old. She died in Mansfield in 1957 at the age of 90. We decided to end our day in Arlington, South Dakota. I had found a campground along Highway 14 that provided electric and dump facility for $10. Those spider bites had me feeling pretty lousy. Wads was really helpful in finding some Benadryl, so I was in for another long nap. $10, I didn't even see this, $10 per day, pay at the municipal building, fire hall on Elm Street. After hours, use the drop box outside. This one here might be a little too low of trees, but that one we could stay at. But only, I think the other ones were taken, so it'd be these two. Why don't you back into this one? This is kind of cute, honey. Maybe we're just done for the day here. Join us in our next video as we continue eastward. Thanks for watching.